Older scouts don't stay for the meeting or merit badges or any of that. They stay for belonging to the troop, for the adventures that they can have, and the obligation that comes with that. Hey, ScouterStan, let's talk a little bit about retaining those older scouts. Now, we've touched on this subject with many different videos. This one, we're trying to look at it from the outside in, okay? And that's the wonderful thing. As a adult leader, we can do that. We can see what's happening with our older scouts. I've said it repeatedly that scouts never joined for boring meetings, ever. The meetings, if you got a boring meeting going on, you need to be really mentoring that senior patrol leader to turn that around. Start with the adventure and then just have the meetings added on so that they can prepare for that adventure. That's the key. And I've been saying that for years, okay? But we need to be looking at that. Now, in that, as adult leaders, we tend to encourage repeats, okay? Let's not do that. Let's try to get the scouts to do something new every year. If they do it year after year after year, your older scouts have done that, been there, okay? They don't want to do it again. So it's important to have those great campouts, but not always the same. Have different themes, different locations. It's a logistics thing. If you can mix that up so that over time you're not repeating over and over, you're going to keep the attention of all the scouts, not only the new ones, but even the older ones. Now, as an adult leader, it's important to observe the older scouts. Are they participating as they did in the past? Are they actively involved? Are they missing meetings? That's something to look for. As an adult leader, it's critical that if you see they're losing that interest, you want to make sure that if they're fading away, to have a Scoutmaster's conference with them. Talk to them about what's going on. There's a lot of things that go on in a scout's life. The teenage world that's out there, there's a lot going on. So it's important as an adult leader to really relate to that and make sure that there is some kind of information flowing between. And I know that's difficult. That happens. It is all too easy to literally say, "Oh, the kids today, they're not committed like they were in my day." No, it's not true. They're the same kids, and it's the same things going on. You have to fulfill that belonging need. That's the big thing about really connecting with the scout. And when you're mentoring the scout and when you're talking to them, you want to make sure that you're aware of what's going on in their world. Yeah, there's new things, but still, there were new things when we were kids. So, and before that. So it's all too easy to walk away saying, "Well, kids these days." Don't. Now, there are warning signs when a scout is starting to lose interest. So this is very important as an adult leader to be observing that. Where is Jim? He wasn't at this last meeting. Maybe a phone call to his parents, find out if it was a game or something going on that he missed out on the meeting for the big adventure. So that's really the thing. Making sure that you're observing the scouts and their attendance. Not just attendance, but actively involved. If they're sitting over there with their hand under their chin and just sitting there watching the chaos, that's natural in a youth meeting. Maybe if they're withdrawn, maybe that's a warning sign. So be looking for that, being aware of that. That's the important part of being proactive in keeping them involved. Now, if they just outright just stop volunteering, they don't want to be patrol leader, they don't want to be assistant patrol leader, they don't want to be cheers, they want to just sit there. Then it's a time to have a meeting with the scout, of course, 2 deep leadership, but sit with the scout and find out what's going on. That's the important thing. That's a warning sign. If they just don't want to volunteer for anything, they don't want to be involved, maybe there's a reason. So you got to be able to be proactive and get in there and talk to them. Now, I know it happens. A lot of scout units become this laundry list of advancement things to get ticked off in their either electronic book or physical book. That's something to avoid. That can be very nerve-wracking for older scouts, and it kind of goes into the thing where the older scouts have done it, been there, have had that advancement done, and then they become the instructors, all of them, and they just don't want to repeat over and over. I mean, I've taught thousands of people how to tie knots, but it can be very monotonous if that's all you do. Okay, that's the thing about scout skills. They need to be refreshed, and the newer scouts need to be there, but you can't just rely on your older scouts to do all the training all the time. That's the key. Occasionally, no problem, but all the time, that gets really wearing. Now, in some troops, they may have an older scout patrol. The reason for that is so that they can do more advanced things. The patrols that have a lot of young scouts in them, they don't have that ability to go and do higher adventurous things. That's the purpose. But a lot of times, that older group tends to be sitting back and not really participating. And that's a critical thing. We need to make sure that the older scouts are included. I personally do not recommend older patrols, okay? Back in the old days, they called them venture patrols. They were venture groups that were able to do more advanced stuff. I don't recommend that because they tend to age away. And if you're not constantly shuffling the patrols around, it's difficult to develop that patrol spirit. And that goes into a lot of other videos that we've done here on the channel. But that's something to consider. It's good to have a mix in every patrol that has older scouts, new scouts, ones in between. That's a great thing to have, because the older ones become what the new ones want to be, and so on. So it's a great thing to have. Definitely think about that in your patrol structures and keeping that spirit alive. Now, with that, a lot of scouts drift away because the phone is far more important than the meeting. It's far more important than anything else going on. We have a screen addiction going on, where it's one screen after another screen. It's odd that it's on YouTube, right? Think about that. I mean, you're watching this now. Anyhow, for our youth, they're constantly watching screens, whether it be YouTube. Hopefully it's good YouTube and good things that they're watching. But it's like constant. And I did a video on the camp mode for your phone. A lot of people don't know about it, but your phone actually has a camp mode. And it should be a meeting mode too. If you have a scout meeting going on or a group of things going on and activities going on, you need to make sure that everybody puts it in scout mode. And that is in that video. So definitely check that out. Put your phone on scout mode, and that way it will not interrupt and have a problem. So, and it's important to think about that. Why do scouts really lose interest? It might be a multitude of reasons, but there are two big cases for that. The first one is there's symptoms to it where they are not actually invested in what's going on. And the reason could be very simple. It could be as simple as they perceive that there's too much adult intervention. That's something that adult leaders like us need to step back. They're the leaders of the youth group. They're the ones that should be doing that. Okay, we are mentors, we're facilitators, we're the ones that help them achieve their goals, not our goals, their goals. If they're seeing constant corrections and micromanaging of all of the scouts, the youth, that could really make a more mature youth really get turned off. That is a youth group. They're supposed to be doing that. If they see that micromanaging going on, there could be a problem. And that would really make a lot of the older scouts say, I don't want to be I don't want to be a part of that. And in that, they might feel like they have no investment in what they're doing. That's a critical thing to really make sure that the scout knows that they're needed, they're wanted, their experiences are valuable. That needs to be there. That needs to be on the front. And that's true for us adults. We need to be thinking about that to make sure that knowledge base from the youth is being utilized the best way. And they feel invested in the unit to make sure that they are part of it. So critical that is a mindset that needs to be there. A lot of adult leaders don't think about that. We need to make sure that they are empowered and they have investment in what the unit is doing. Their patrol, their troop, the whole thing. They need to have that. Youth engagement rises as their responsibilities rises. If your program is the same thing over and over, we do a camp out every spring. We do this constantly, okay? We always do it in the same place. We do it over and over, and that gets really repetitive for your older scouts. So it needs to be mixed up. It needs to have some life put into it. Now, it's not just the adventures. How about the meetings? If your big adventure is going to be a canoe trip, maybe have your meeting outdoors. Go outside with a canoe. It doesn't have to be in a lake or a river, okay? It can be on the shore, and have the canoe there and explain all the different parts of the canoe. Talk about the paddle and how to row. These are scout things that it just would be different. If your unit is always meeting indoors, always in the same place, try to mix that up. And it could be at the last minute too. You could meet there, do your flags and your opening ceremony, and then boom, go off to different activities. That's a way of mixing it up, making it different. Now, a lot of these ideas come from the youth. So as an adult leader, you don't have to invent the wheel. You can have them do it. Ask probing questions. Get them to really put in information to kind of mix things up, make it more fun. Now, the scout meeting is a great way to get updates on any advancement things that have been going on. It's not the treadmill of nothing but advancement all the time. Your younger scouts need it, but your older scouts, it's repetitive, and they can be a big no sign. So make sure that you're not just a treadmill of advancement stuff. Advancement is important, but it should be not the only thing. Adventure creates memories. Repetition creates boredom. Always keep that in mind. As an adult leader, we need to motivate the scouts to keep thinking outside the tent, okay? And start really working the unit, making it interesting. Leadership should always have a purpose. Their responsibilities need to be very clear. And that has a lot to do with the troop training that goes on. Crew, if you're in an adventure crew, that's all a part of scouting, to make sure that those things are occurring in a proper manner so that the older scouts aren't getting left behind. That's an important key to good success. The SPL, the Senior Patrol Leader, should not be just the announcer at the meeting. This is what we're doing here. This is the person we're going to introduce now. No, they are very involved in the scheduling of what goes on in their meeting, the SPL. If they're not, then the adults need to really mentor that senior patrol leader so that they are involved and they are doing what they need to be done so that they can get the meeting going and getting really involved. As an adult leader, it's incredibly important that we mentor the scouts and give them real responsibility. I want to make sure that scout is doing what's needed for the best of the group, for the entire troop. That's a thing. Give them responsibilities and hold them accountable for that. That is very important. That's real leadership, and that's what they're there for, is to learn leadership and to have those great adventures. Now, with older scouts, you always have to keep this in mind. That repetitiveness creating the boredom. You can't keep doing that to them as an adult leader. I know you have a lot of new scouts and they need advancement and stuff. You can't just make them do it because they're going to get burned out. Burnout happens because they got a lot going on. We've talked about it in other videos where they got so many things going on. It's important to really consolidate and make sure that they're doing what's necessary, okay? And it's not always the same people over and over and over again, because that burnout will be inevitable. And that will also happen when you overload the schedule. I've said it repeatedly. There should always be a break time in a camping schedule. If you're going on an adventure, you're on a camp out, there should always be time for just patrol activities, for them just to sit and talk, play cards, whatever's needed. They need that moment of non-structured time to spend with each other. In scouting, we call it fellowship. So that's very important. And if you really want to make that part of your schedule, you can program it in there. You don't have to program every second. That's for wood batch. When you program it all in, make sure that you leave in fellowship time for them just to be with their peers. That's a big thing. You can't structure it all the time. Older scouts have sports and maybe even work. They might be doing some part-time work somewhere. This is something that can really remove them from scouting. Those adventures, though, will keep them there. So you got to think of it in that term. Sometimes scouts don't need more pressure. They need more inspiration. Hey, Before we go any further, I want to make sure that you know that you're personally invited to come to the Campfire Chat. It's a live meeting we hold on the very first Sunday of each month, starting at 9 p.m. Please join us with your questions, and we will answer those live on the show. In addition, I want to also thank all of the Patreon supporters that are helping support what we do here. Also, if you want to get directly involved with the channel, we have a membership. Hit the join button and it will give you more information about how to get involved in supporting what we do. And in that, here's a list of all the people that are continuing their support of our channel. What good leaders do differently is a critical thing when you're thinking about bringing the interest of your older scouts alive. High adventure opportunities. There are bases throughout America that have different high adventure activities. You can also come up with one. That's the thing. You don't do it. The youth do it. The older scouts. They could come up with all kinds of interesting things. It may not be the big adventure that would be at a base like Philmont or the canoe base or sea base or any of those other bases that are out there. It might be something totally different. Those adventures need to be encouraged. They could be a survival weekend where when they go on that survival excursion, that camp out, what they have when they leave camp, that's all they're going to have for the next 48 hours, for the next 2 days. It's a survival camp out. Amazing. Youth really just lit up when they had that idea. We encouraged them to kind of develop it, come up with how that's going to be done. How are you going to build meetings towards that event? Are there any restrictions? So on. The youth can come up with that. As an adult leader, we need to encourage it. Patrol competitions is another great way for scouts within that troop to actually get their patrol to be very active. The cheer, their flags, so on. Getting all that fellowship really developed. That's an incredibly important thing about patrol method. That can kind of carry on in a crew. If you have different groups, you can divide off into different groups that may have a specialty. One likes to hike, the other one likes to do climbing. So you could have those kind of mixed together and then different things. You can mix it up. Have the young adults come up with those ideas. Those future leaders need to have that opportunity. Now, a lot of scout troops may think that a hike is not a good thing because it's a daytime thing and you go out and so on. What about a hiking trip, 50 miles or something like that? That's a very big adventure. That's something that a lot of scouts don't get an opportunity to do. If that's something your youth want to do, encourage it. And it can be with a canoe, okay? It could be a long canoe trip, a weeks-long canoe trip. There's so many things. Try to get them aware of it and see what their interest is. As adult leaders, we need to influence that and make sure that we're mentoring those scouts that want to do that. That's an adventure. Give them the adventure of scouting. Older scouts will always stay where the excitement is. That's the wonderful thing. If your adventures are the same ones over and over again, like we talked about before, they're not going to stay. If it's something new, something they've never experienced, that might be something that'll keep them involved. There's so many opportunities, and we need to make sure that they get that available, especially for the older scouts. Now, with that, as adults, we need to let them fail safely. We never want to set up a situation where they're going to be in a issue. Okay, that's just not Scout-like. So we want them to do the right thing at the beginning. Okay, and fail, like I've said throughout this entire season, it's to your first attempt at learning. Okay, fail. That's okay. That's an okay thing, even for the older scouts. Make sure that the patrol leader position is not relegated as a, do as the senior patrol leader says. You want to make sure that they have input, that they actually are a part of the total unit of what they call the Patrol Leaders Council. Make sure that patrol leader has the authority to really do things that would help the troop. And that's where that mentoring comes in with the adults. And as an adult, it is super critical that we do not solve problems for them. That sounds strange. But if an issue comes up where it's not safety involved, we need to let them come up with ask them, how do we solve that problem? That's what they need to be thinking about. That's a leadership opportunity to learn skills that they need, that they want. That's why they're involved in scouting. And that's the only way you're going to keep your older scouts going. As an adult leader, we need to think of advancement in support of the adventure. That's the key. If you could keep that involved and mentor the scouts to lead themselves towards that's fantastic. In fact, we did a video on that very subject. Right up there. Check it out. That one talks more involved about advancement or growth. Are we doing one or the other? So definitely make that part of your learning list, okay? These lectures are here for that reason. So definitely check that video out. Now, if all possible with adventures, try not to repeat them, okay? That adventure should stand on its own in legend with all your scouts. Wow, what a great camp out. We went to that island where we did wilderness survival. It's that. Don't try to redo that, okay? You could do something similar, like going on a canoeing trip to a spoils island or going down a river you've never done before. That should live on its own. So try to make your adventures individual. You don't want it to repeat and try to do it again and again. The importance of older scouts can never be understated. It's so critical for the younger scouts to see them, to see their activities, the way they manage the youth-led troop, how they interact with their peers. Is so important for them to have that exposure. They desire it. They want to see the older youth doing those things. It's so critical for your new scouts to really see that interaction. Now, not all the new scouts are going to be from Cub Scouts. They might be from a recruitment that you did. So they may have some older youth in there, teenagers, that would be involved in that. So that peer system that occurs is critical to their involvement. Practical reset ideas for leadership, the youth leadership, the adult leadership that's mentoring and coaching and helping them along, needs to bring this up. And this is one thing they could do very easily. They could talk to the senior patrol leader and say, hey, we need to rethink the entire month that's coming up of meetings. Are they directly related to our next big adventure? Are they part of that? That's something that can be done. Maybe if it's an issue, you could talk to the youth leadership and say, hey, can we run an entire meeting with no lectures? Okay, this is a lecture, okay? Can we run a whole meeting without doing a big lecture production? That's something that could be a worthy goal. As a mentor, you might even say, hey, let's bring back some competitions that would be related to our next big adventure that we're planning. Maybe you could mentor the scout towards doing more training of the younger scouts, but not on just scout skills. Maybe it's something on, it could be communications. It could be on different things, different aspects of advancement. That might be something that they would be into. Ask them. Now, as far as the adventures that are out there, ask them what their big adventure that they would like to plan. Completely plan it. I mean, literally step by step, plan the whole thing. Have them do that. Bring that to the Patrol Leaders Council. Have that gone over by the Scoutmasters. That is so critical. They have real ownership of that adventure. That's critical. Make sure that the youth have that ability to have real ownership of the activity. Scouting is strongest when the older scouts really do feel that they are needed, and they are. We know that from the adult standpoint. They're very critical to the whole thing with your troop, with your crew, even a Sea Scout ship. They are very important. They are designing that program. That program also needs to be challenging. There should be all kinds of leadership opportunities there for whatever adventure they decide. And with that, this is big. The adults need to have a certain amount of trust in that scout so that they can really perform. They can really take on that task. Adventurous task or adventurers can be a task. It's important that we give them the opportunity. And that's a thing that a lot of adult leaders have problems with. They can't rely on that scout to do it. You need to mentor them. You need to communicate in a way that gets that information across so that they understand that they are in charge. And that adventure is the whole reason they're in scouting. They want adventure. Finally, they need to be connected. They need to be part of your troop in so many ways. That patrol leader, that assistant patrol leader, that assistant senior patrol leader, senior patrol leader, all of their management, the youth-led management, needs to be connected. They need that. It's so important so that the ideas that they have, and they're great, they really do have some really great ideas. That's something that the adult leadership, which is separate from the youth leadership, okay, we are there to mentor, coach, and to facilitate, right? So we need to be thinking about that. But when they have those great ideas, we need to encourage it and build upon it and ask those probing questions and get them going towards what they want. Not what we want, what they want. That's the key. It's very important that as adult leaders we understand this is their youth group. We have very specific jobs that we do. And one of the biggest ones is not just safety. Safety is number one, but making sure that they are motivated and that they have the resources available And that's something we do as adult leaders. And we do so much for them. You know, behind the scenes, they have no idea all the logistics they have to go on just to go on an adventure. You know, they need to be aware of that, but they're not really planning it all because it's all the adults doing all the transportation, right? So it's important that they are aware of it, and keeping them involved is so critical to everything we do. And you're a big part of that. And I'm so grateful that you're working hard towards that. But keeping your older scouts involved is nothing more than giving them the opportunity to stay involved. Let them take the ownership. Let them do all the planning. That is so important for a lot of scouts. And if they feel that, they won't want to leave, okay? And no matter what's going on, they'll always be a part of your troop. I'm glad that you're a part of this channel and watching these videos and the lectures that we do. We do a lot of different ones. Now, I want to apologize for going a little long on this one, but sometimes you got to cover all that information. It's very important that we do that, and that's what we do on this channel. We did do a video. It was about the leadership between the youth and, of course, the adults, the two. And definitely check that out. Oh, wait a minute. It's over here. Right over there. Until next time, I'll see you on the trail.